Unlock the secrets of kosher cooking. Dive into the intricate laws of meat and milk in traditional Jewish cuisine. Understand the meticulous guidelines that dictate whether a dish remains permissible or becomes forbidden based on the interaction of milk and meat, accidental mixtures, and more. Get ready to explore the fascinating complexities of kosher culinary rules. An olive worth of meat that falls into a pot of boiling milk. Let a non-Jew taste the dish. If he says that there is a taste of meat in it, then it is forbidden. If not, then the milk is permitted, even if there is less than 60, and that piece of the meat is forbidden. When is this true? When one quickly removes the piece before it exudes the milk that is absorbed, meaning before the pot rests from its boiling. But if he didn't remove it before it was able to exude the milk, it is absorbed, even if non-Jew tastes it and has no taste at all. What does the Rama say? He says that it is forbidden unless there is 60. We see that from chapter 98, Shulchan Arukh, Yoreh De'ah, that we aren't accustomed to rely on the tasting of non-Jew, and we need 60 every time. Milk falls into a pot of meat. Let a non-Jew taste the piece that the milk fell on. If it does not taste of milk, everything is permitted. If the piece does not taste of milk, then that piece is forbidden. For us who don't rely on a non-Jew, we need 60 in the piece. And if there's no 60, then it's all forbidden. And we measure it, the original piece of meat, against the whole pot. If there was, in all that is in the pot, the pieces, the vegetables, the soup, and all the spices, enough that this piece is 1 in 60 or less of the whole, the piece is forbidden, and the rest is permitted. In what situation are we speaking? When the pot was not stirred in the beginning and when it fell in, but only at the end, and the pot wasn't covered. But if it was stirred from the beginning until the end and was covered from the time of milk falling in until the end, everything joins together to nullify the taste of milk. Therefore, what the Rama says is that if it wasn't stirred at all, not at the beginning and not at the end, it wasn't covered at all. If there is 60 and the pot compared to the drop of milk that fell in only prohibits the piece alone, and the rest of the pot is permitted, Bet Yosef, in the name of the Ravid, in Magid Mishnah, and the name of the Rambam, and also if it was stirred at the beginning or covered immediately, even though it wasn't stirred or covered at the end, all of the point joins together. It was stirred or covered immediately when the prohibited matter fell in. Torah and Bet Yosef in the name of the of Ri and Rav Chaviv. Therefore, if the milk fell into the soup or onto a piece, and we don't know onto which piece it fell, stir the whole pot until it's all mixed. If in the whole pot there is a taste of milk, it's prohibited, and if it's not, it is permitted. And if there is no non-Jew to taste and be relied on, we measure with 60. Until now, the language of the Rambam. But what the Rama says? There are those who disagree, and reason that stirred the pot isn't effective unless it's stirred immediately after the prohibited matter fell in, and then this is our practice. When a piece of meat becomes forbidden due to milk, it is prohibited completely. If it was cooked with others, 60 is needed to negate it all. If you recognize it, take it out of the others and others are acceptable. If you do not recognize it, the sauce is permitted. But all the pieces of meat are forbidden if the initial piece was rechuya lichtichabed. This means that it is too important to be considered part of a mixture. Too important. What does too important mean? Too important to be eaten at a special event. We only say the role of the piece itself becomes just as forbidden as a nevela by milk and meat, but not by other prohibitions, like an olive's bulk of forbidden fat that was absorbed by a piece of meat. And there isn't 60 times the meat to nullify the fat, and it becomes forbidden. And afterwards it was cooked when other meat, we only require the new total to have 60 times the olive bulk of the fat. And if so, then even the original piece of meat itself returns to become permitted. What does the Rama say? And there are those that say that we apply to all prohibitions the rule of the piece becomes just as forbidden as a nevela. And this is the regular custom, and it should not be changed. And this is precisely if the forbidden item is attached to the permitted piece of meat, or if the piece of meat is entirely outside of the sauce and the forbidden item fell into it. But if part of this meat is inside the sauce and the prohibited item is not attached to it, we do not say the piece of meat becomes just as forbidden as a nevela, and the entire pot would combine to 60 times the forbidden to nullify the forbidden item. Nevertheless, there is what to be stringent about to forbid that piece of meat, and all of this is regarding other prohibitions. But by milk and meat, even though there's no forbidden item attached and part of the piece of meat is inside the sauce, we say that the piece becomes just as forbidden as a nevela. There are those that say that we don't say the piece becomes just as forbidden as a nevela. It is forbidden liquid became mixed with a permitted liquid, and afterwards the entire thing became mixed with another permitted item, and we only require 60 times against the original forbidden liquid that fell in order to nullify the forbidden part of the mixture. And there are those that rely on this in other prohibitions, if it's needed in a case of great loss, but not by milk and meat. And if a dry item became mixed with a dry item, we do not say by any prohibition that the piece becomes just as forbidden as a nevela. We can see above in chapter 99. According to the law, the piece becomes just as forbidden as a nevela. A vessel that became forbidden by absorbing a forbidden item, we do not say by it the piece becomes just as forbidden as a nevela, and we only need 60 times against the prohibited item that was absorbed in order to nullify it, and we see this above in chapter 98. Back to Shulchan Arukh. A drop of milk that falls on the outside of a pot that is on the fire, if the drop falls opposite of the food in the pot, one only needs the amount of food in the pot to be 60 times the amount of milk in the drop that was absorbed within the walls of the pot. This is as if the drop fell into the food itself. But if the drop fell opposite a place opposite in the pot where there is no food, it spreads out within the walls of the pot until it is next to the food such that it is not 60 times against the drop. That spot on the pot is prohibited, and if one stirs against the prohibited spot on the pot, the food is prohibited. This is how to fix it. Do not touch it until it has cooled off. What the Rama says, this applies specifically to an old pot, one that one has been used within the last 24 hours. If the pot is new, has not been used within the last 24 hours, if any case one needs 60 times only against the drop that fell on it, as it says later in the section 98 concerning the spoon. The prevailing custom is to forbid when a drop of milk falls on the outside of the wall of the pot, not opposite where the sauce is. And this is precisely when it falls on the side of the pot, that this is not near the fire, but it fell on the side near the fire. It is permitted because the fire burns and it dries it out, and then the pot would also be permitted. And this is precisely when dealing with a small amount, such as a drop, but if a large amount fell, it is not permitted, even if it fell on the side near the fire, unless it was opposite, even if it was opposite the sauce and was 60 times the amount. Rema. And then the pot would be forbidden, even if there was 60 times the amount in the cooked food against the drip that fell, and one should immediately pour out the cook from a food from it on the other side, not near the drop. And if one cooks in that pot another cooked dish, its law is the same as the first time. Back to the Shulchan Arukh. There are those that permit it in extenuating circumstances. For example, on the eve of Shabbos, even if the drop is not opposite the sauce, even not on the side of the fire, as long as there's 60 times the amount. What the Rama says is that this is the custom, and if milk spilled on or any other hot forbidden food on the ground, and you put on top of it a hot pot of meat, if what spilled is not near the fire, it's only a secondary vessel of heat, and therefore the pot is forbidden because it absorbs a bit, and cooked food is permitted because the bottom item determines the status. And the steam and the stream from a boiling pot that went to another cold pot, and if the stream was cut off from the bubbles of the boiling pot before it reached the cold pot, it's also considered like a secondary vessel of heat. And if it's not cut off it's like it was poured from a primary vessel. And the cold pot is forbidden if the stream that's touching the food is as hot as when the hand retracts. And the cooked food that's inside it is permitted because what's poured only forbids up to an amount that needs to be peeled away. But if the other pot is hot and its primary vessel, and certainly if it's standing near a fire, even if the stream is cold, it's all forbidden because the bottom item determines the status. And if it's like cold inside of hot, where it's all forbidden, like we explained above in chapter 91, a drop that fell onto the lid of a pot, its law is like if it fell on the pot opposite sauce. And this is, the pot has already begun to boil, because then the steam constantly goes up and reaches the lid, and goes down from there to the sauce. A pan of milk placed in an oven underneath a pot of meat, the stream rises, enters the pot, and renders it forbidden. What the Rama says is that if there was actual milk in the pan, then we require 60 times its volume in the meat. And all of this is when the pan is open and the steam rises up from the food itself to the pan that is above it. And also, if the two are so close to each other that the steam that rises is so high that it will make your hand retreat rapidly, which would mean it is very hot. If not, then everything is permissible. Therefore, we hang meat slats over dairy pots, and we don't worry about the steam that rises. And if something is covered, then everything is permissible, since it is like two pots that touch each other, with which do not make each other forbidden, and all the more mere steam. But ideally, the chatchila, one should be strict on all this. A tallow candle, made like a wax candle, from which falls a drop of hot liquid tallow on a pot, one only needs to scrape it off. However, if a drop of hot molten tallow fell in a pot, it requires koshering by immersion in a boiling water. Journey through the world of kosher culinary arts. You've just scratched the surface of the rich and detailed guidelines that govern kosher cooking. If this glimpse into the world of milk, meat, and their delicate balance has intrigued you, there's so much more to be learned and explored. Embrace the wisdom of traditional Jewish cuisine by subscribing to this channel, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.